if you can master your own dopamine levels by being consistent with the right habits and by choosing to say no to the things that give you that short, sharp hit and the crash that comes after it, that is going to make a huge difference to your energy as an introvert. And as an introvert, your energy has to be your number one priority if you're ambitious, because it is literally the fuel that you run on. Today, I'm bringing you behind the scenes of a conversation I have been having over and over and over lately. I have had it with a mentor of mine, I've had it with peers and other business owners, and I've had it with clients. And when a theme keeps coming up, it's a sure sign to me that it needs to be on the podcast, because if we're all interested in it and we need to hear it, then probably so do you. Welcome back to the Ambitious Introvert Podcast. I'm Emma-Louise, and on this solo episode, I am going to give you a really, really quick run through of one of the biggest traps that could be affecting your energy, and that is the search for hits of dopamine. Now, dopamine massively affects our energy. It has a massive impact on our mental health. And understanding the difference between healthy dopamine and the dangers of chasing the more instant gratification type dopamine hits can make a huge impact on your long-term sustainable energy, which as an introvert is key. So let's dive in. I'm going to just share some thoughts. I'm going to share what we've been talking about. I'm going to share why this is important. And then I'm just going to wrap up with some questions so that you can look at your own dopamine synthesization, let's just say. So what is dopamine? Well, dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain. And as I'm sure you've probably heard, it is responsible for pleasure and reward. So this means it plays a crucial role in things like motivation, long-term focus, and obviously our energy levels. Now, from an evolutionary point of view, it motivates us to seek activities that will help us survive. So dopamine makes us want to eat. It makes us want to bond with people. It makes us want to be productive. It makes us want to mate. All of these things that are necessary for us to survive as a species. Now, obviously, with other neurotransmitters, with other hormones, with the whole endocrine system, balance is important. So we want to maintain balanced levels of dopamine because this helps with our long-term mental well-being. It helps with our kind of drive and passion, and also feelings of satisfaction, which is going to start to make more sense as I talk a little bit more about ways that dopamine could be hindering you rather than helping you. So let's just say that we are engaged in work that is really meaningful to us. So for me, that is having this business and coaching. That work is super meaningful. So think about for you, maybe it's a project that you've been really involved in and you really care about the outcome of it. Or maybe it's ongoing work. Maybe you find deep meaning in the job that you do. Then dopamine will help you to feel rewarded by doing that work. And that will boost your motivation to continue doing it or to seek, similar goals, doing a similar thing. So as introverts, it's so important for us to feel energized through this deeper, purposeful work, because otherwise we're going to be on this dopamine roller coaster of feast and famine, not feeling a deeper purpose, not feeling satisfied, not feeling fulfilled, and looking for these short bursts of happiness that in the long term are not going to be good for us. Another great example of this for introverts is social interactions. That's why calm social interactions, or why deep interpersonal connections, spending time with, a handful of people you're really close to, is much better for us than superficial stimulation of large groups or noisy places. Because the dopamine, we're almost going to get an overload of dopamine from that, and it's not what our system needs. So the dopamine trap, which we could also call the instant gratification culture. Think about social media. Think about Amazon. Think about Netflix. Think about Deliveroo. All of these things exist to help us to access things almost instantly. I can place an order from Amazon and it is delivered to my house, in most cases, the same day. That is insane. It makes us expect to have things instantly. Think about social media. Think about Silicon Valley. Think about how the brightest brains in the world who used to be working on Wall Street and as scientists and economists and politicians are now being paid the big bucks to work for social media companies with the primary aim of getting people to use their apps and keeping people on their apps. It's not by accident that there's an infinite scroll. It's not by accident that your notifications are red. All of these things give us that instant dopamine hit. It gives us this, oh, look, something's happened that I need to see straight away. And then again, things like Netflix, everything's on demand. We get it instantly. Deliveroo, oh, I don't want to go out. I get my food delivered. It will be here in 20 minutes. So life now gives us constant dopamine hits. And that is what these companies want because they want us to keep coming back, which is causing a rise in addictive behaviors, such as scrolling, binge watching, and really outsourcing our own self-worth to external metrics such as likes and comments. One of my mentors, Jess Lorimer, who I will link Jess below. Jess is an amazing mentor for anyone that sells their services into corporates. I'm part of her program, and we had an in-person mastermind day in September, and she said a quote that was just like, so I'm going to attribute it to her here, that she said, business owners need to stop chasing the dopamine and chase the money instead. Because so many business owners get caught up in superficial metrics like, I posted a post and it didn't get many likes, because they want the dopamine of the likes and they keep opening the app and then they go, I have to spend so much time on social media to run my business. Well, no, you don't, but you're opening the app 20 times a day to see if anyone's liked your post. Whereas she talks about doing the really boring tasks, but that actually bring money, like consistently reaching out to companies to see if they want your services, right? So our brains have now been trained to expect these short bursts of pleasure. And rather than sustaining dopamine for longer, more meaningful activities like they would have done in the past, like learning or building relationships or, setting a goal and sticking to it to achieve it, because it's really affecting our attention span, we will give up really, really quickly on something when we think it's not working because we haven't had a rush of dopamine to show it's instantly working. So overall, this has a massive effect on our ability to focus. It has a massive negative effect on our energy, unfortunately, by draining it. And it can actually be really harmful to mental health in the long term. So another issue that I see a lot is people equate these dopamine hits because ultimately, you're giving your brain a little boost. It's feeling great, right? But they equate it with self-worth. So when they're seeking these frequent dopamine hits, whether it's through likes and comments, whether it's through, eating a certain type of food, whether it's through shopping, this doesn't equate to real deep fulfillment. And it's no reflection whatsoever on our self-worth. And this is something that it's really easy to mix up. So when we equate these dopamine-driven actions and the pleasure that we get from that instant hit to self-esteem, it's like a vicious feedback cycle where that leads to more of a need for external validation. So we then start to question, if I'm not getting these likes or comments, or I'm not doing this thing, then it's bad. It means something bad. So I need to get that to mean something good. But self-worth doesn't come from likes and comments. Self-worth comes from within, and it comes through your values. It comes through doing work that is meaningful to you. It comes from having deep connections and relationships that give you long-term fulfillment rather than these short bursts of dopamine happiness, let's call it. And so I just wonder how many of you have seen yourself in any of the things that I've mentioned. Quite often when we are looking for dopamine and when we are on this kind of roller coaster, as I call it, and looking for this instant feedback about if something's working or not, or if we're worthy or not, we feel very unregulated. It actually feels very chaotic in our system because we're constantly reacting to what we see. Whereas when we have a better relationship with dopamine, when we can take control, let's say, of things like social media, when we can understand and separate ourselves and our self-worth from what we see in notifications, and when we can also cultivate dopamine in ways that are more fulfilling and more sustainable, such as spending time in nature, getting enough sleep, eating a healthy diet, all these things that might sound really boring, but in the long term, they are the things that are going to set you up for success. Whereas if we're constantly having these hits of dopamine, it's much harder for us to stay in that kind of regulated, steady state because we're always up, down, up, down, up, down. And we're reliant on the external. Like part of being an introvert, if we go back to Carl Jung's definitions, part of it is that we are internally focused. We gaze inwards and we spend a lot of time in our own rich inner worlds. So when we're looking for these dopamine hits, we're literally taking ourselves out of that place, which is taking us out of our zone of genius, in all honesty. So here's a couple of questions that can help you to, I guess, evaluate your own relationship with dopamine, with instant gratification, and start to notice whether it's something that is having an impact on your energy levels, on your self-worth, and on your fulfillment. So do you feel anxious and restless if you can't check your phone or if you can't look at social media? Like if you're in a situation where your phone isn't accessible, do you find yourself reaching for it? Do you find yourself picking your phone up to look at the screen in case you've missed a notification? Do you look for quick wins and distractions rather than focusing on bigger long-term projects? So this could be that, like as a business owner, I could put something in place for my marketing that could take 3-6 months maybe to start seeing an ROI, and I have to be consistent with it. But if I did it in the first week and I went, it's not working, I haven't got any clients through it, it's not working, and stopped it, then obviously I'm not going to get to the long-term success. I would be seeking the quick win. So maybe think about that. And that could be with anything, you know, there's a lot of perfectionism around, say, exercise is a huge one for people where they feel like, you know, they have to do it perfectly. They have to have the perfect outfit and go to the perfect gym, and they have to be able to go 5 times a week. And as soon as it's not that, they've lost interest, or they start doing that. And after 2 weeks, they haven't lost the weight they wanted, or they don't feel any stronger. So they stop. But if they carried it on, they would have massive results, but they're looking for that instant gratification. This one is super common with clients. I've talked about it before on the podcast. When you achieve something, do you actually enjoy the process, or are you only chasing the reward? Are you going, well, when I get this, I'll be happy. When I get there. And then finding that when you get there, it's like, okay, what's next? Constantly chasing that hit of dopamine of achieving something rather than actually enjoying the process and recognizing that we find that fulfillment and we find happiness in the day-to-day, not just the one time that we hit something. How do you feel if you don't get immediate feedback? Or how do you feel if you don't get recognition that you would like to have for something? So maybe it is posting on social media. Maybe you put a picture and you think, oh, this is a really great picture and no one really seems to care. How do you feel? How do you feel if you share your idea or opinion and other people, they're just not that enthused by it? So you don't get that hit of dopamine of people going, well, that's great, amazing, well done. How do you feel? How does that make you feel? Maybe you're comfortable in yourself. Maybe you're okay and maybe you don't need that, but maybe this is resonating and you think, oh, actually, I do feel like that when people don't recognize me. And are you cultivating habits that help you build sustained energy? And you know I'm all about this if you've been listening for any amount of time. Or are you chasing quick dopamine hits? So my clients know that if they check their phone at 11 p.m., that is not good for them. They know it's going to affect their sleep. They know the blue light's going to affect their sleep. They know it's going to switch their brain on to whatever they see, which they can't control. So they get a crappy email from a client. They've seen it. It's affected their sleep, okay? They can make the choice not to look at the phone. That's really hard for some of them. It's really, really hard because, as we said earlier, it creates an addiction to need that boost of dopamine. It's also a habit, just a habit of having the phone there. But what habits are you building to sustain your energy? So are you building good sleep hygiene? Are you building making sure you move in your body? Are you building having deep connections and making sure that you have a community, whether that's in person or online? Are you spending time in nature? Are you drinking enough water? Like all of these things, they're not sexy, but they are the things that work in the long term. And I can tell you that my clients that have success over and over and over again prioritize these things. Are they perfect? No. Do they fall off the wagon sometimes? Yes. But do they know how to very quickly put themselves back in a state of having consistent dopamine and not looking for external validation? Yes, they know how to do it very, very quickly. So I hope you enjoyed this very small episode. This might be something that I dive deeper into. I might look for an expert to bring on to talk about it more in depth. But I know from the conversations that I have been having this month, this is very, very needed for a lot of people. And actually, if you can master your own dopamine levels by being consistent with the right habits and by choosing to say no to the things that give you that short, sharp hit and the crash that comes after it, that is going to make a huge difference to your energy as an introvert. And as an introvert, your energy has to be your number one priority if you're ambitious, because it is literally the fuel that you run on. So I hope this has been helpful in maybe considering some areas that you can bring more balance into your relationship with dopamine. And of course, anyone listening to this going, I would love support around this. This is the type of thing that I support my private clients with. And if you would like to have a conversation to see if working together is the right move for really getting your energy balanced and setting you up for that success, whatever it is that you are looking to do, then head to the show notes and fill in the form and let's have a conversation. But for now, let me know how this episode landed. I would love to hear from you. You can email anytime, hello@theambitiousintrovert.com. Always love to get feedback. Do you want to hear more of this? Would you like more in depth about this? Did it resonate with you? And what did you discover about your own relationship with dopamine? Until next time, I'll see you soon. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. I hope that you're feeling expanded to what's possible for you, motivated to take action, and inspired about how you can start to own your energy. I share even more tools and resources on my Introverts Only email newsletter. By signing up, you not only get early access to the Ambitious Introvert products and services, but you also get brand new podcast episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Monday, meaning you'll never miss your weekly dose of introvert-friendly inspiration. Sign up now at theambitiousintrovert.com/newsletter or click the link in the show notes. See you next week.